Good day. These are the sample questions for the last topic under aquaculture. Issues and advances / aquaculture standards. 1 refers to the organism whose genetic material is altered using genetic engineering techniques. A. Genetically engineered organism. B. Genetically modified organism. C. Genetically improved organism. D. Genome modified organism. The answer is B. Genetically modified organism. These fish are being engineered for traits that allegedly will make them better suited for industrial aquaculture, such as faster growth and disease resistance. 2. For much faster propagation of fish, the most common hormones used in induced spawning is A. GMO. B. GHC. C. HCG. D. HGC. The answer is C. HCG. Human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG, is the most common purified gonadotropin hormone used for induced spawning. In fish, the injected gonadotropin mimics the natural GTH produced by the fish's pituitary. 3. The Pacific white shrimp, Litopendeus vannamei, is the most widely cultured and productive alien crustacean worldwide. Pathogens are also widespread. We can prevent these pathogens by culturing what? A. SPF. B. SPR. C. SFPD. SAO. The answer is a. SPF. Specific pathogen-free, higher survival rates for commercial shrimp farming. For the Asian Arowana is the world's most expensive aquarium fish. Arowana is hard to distinguish which is the male and the female. It is because they have the same characteristics. What is the advanced way to identify each broodstock? A. Put microchip. B. Put hole on the dorsal fin. C. Put number using marker. D. Put pink and blue paint. The answer is a. Put microchip. Microchip is a radio frequency identification transponder that carries a unique identification number and can store a lot of data about the broodstock. 5. This system rears fish at high densities, in indoor tanks with a controlled environment, filter and clean the water for recycling through fish culture tanks. A. WBSB hydroponics. C. RWSD RAS. The answer is D. RAS. Recirculating aquaculture system. The culture water is purified and reused continuously, represent a new way to farm fish. Instead of the traditional method of growing fish outdoors. 6. There were 13 standards presented in the Philippine National Standards, Code of Good Aquaculture Practices, GAQP, with compliance requirements. Which of the following does not belong? A. Sitting and design. B. Facilities and sanitation. C. Farm management. D. None of the above. The answer is D. None of the above. All of the above are included in aquaculture standards. 7. In the Sitting and Design Standard, in terms of location, aquaculture farms should be in an environmentally suitable area where risks to food safety from all of these are minimized, except A. Chemical. B. Biological and physical hazards from air. C. Soil and water. D. None of the above. The answer is D. None of the above. Aquaculture farms should be in an environmentally suitable area where risks to food safety from chemical, biological, and physical hazards from air, soil, and water are minimized. 8. Still under sitting and design standard, the layout and design of aquaculture farms should A. Not be used for aquaculture purposes only. B. Livestock production is allowed. C. Wild and domestic animals should be included in the pond. D. None of the above. The answer is D. None of the above. Aquaculture farms should be used for aquaculture purposes only. Livestock production is not allowed unless done in distinct areas within the farm. Wild and domestic animals should be excluded from pond and harvesting areas. 9. In the waste and sanitation standard, upon waste removal, the waste should be removed at least A. Once a day. B. Twice a week. C. Every week. D. Once a month. The answer is A. Once a day. Waste containers and the waste storage premises should be cleaned and sanitized after each use. Waste should be removed at least once a day. 10. In the feeds and feeding standards, during feeding practices, the risk for all of these should be minimized, except A. Biological. B. Chemical. C. Physical contaminations of feeds and animals. D. None of the above. The answer is D. None of the above. Due to the fact that feeding practices should minimize the risk for biological, chemical, and physical contaminations of feeds and animals. 11. In drugs and chemical use standard, to control the occurrence of disease spreading, you can buy veterinary drugs, medicated feeds, chemical and biological substances from the established stores near you to respond quickly to your fish health. A. The statement is correct. B. The statement is incorrect. C. Maybe. The answer is B. The statement is incorrect. Veterinary drugs, medicated feeds, chemical and biological substances should be obtained from registered or authorized manufacturers and suppliers only. 12. All of these are compliance requirements under Farm Management Standard, except A. Pond preparation. B. Water management. C. Location. D. Personal hygiene. The answer is C. Location. This is a compliance requirement under Sitting and Design Standard. 13. All of these are compliance requirements under Feeds and Feeding Standard, except A. Waste removal. B. Origin of feed and feed substances. C. Storage of feeds and feed materials. D. Feed quality. The answer is A. Waste removal. This is a compliance requirement under Waste and Sanitation Standard. 14. In the 13 standards presented in the Philippine National Standards, Code of Good Aquaculture Practices, GAQP, with compliance requirements, which of the following does not belong? A. Disease. B. Mortalities. C. Harvesting and transport. D. Training on health and safety. The answer is D. Training on health and safety. This is a compliance requirement under Labor and Community Standard. 15. All of these are compliance requirements under labor and community standard, except A. First aid, B. Protective gear, C. Wages and working hours, D. All of the above. The answer is D. All of the above. These are all compliance requirement under labor and community standard. 16. It is one of the major problems in aquaculture that produces waste in the form of feces and unused feed and causes the depletion of oxygen in coastal environment. A. Pollution, B. Habitat destruction, C. Disease transmission, D. Forage or wild fish impact, E. None of the above, F. All of the above. The answer is a pollution. Pollution may cause water quality to deteriorate and anoxic sediments to build up, and the emission of marine animal waste from aquaculture facilities into the ecosystem will not only affect other fish, but will also result in nutrient pollution. 17. The competition between municipal and the commercial fishing sectors is due to the finite nature of marine resources combined with an open access principle. A. Destructive fishing, B. Resource depletion in the coastal areas and inland waters, C. Overfishing, D. Siltation/pollution, E. None of the above, F. All of the above. The answer is C. Overfishing. Fisherfolk are forced to employ more efficient fishing technology, increasing finer mesh nets and other destructive fishing method to meet their short-term needs. 18. Environmental degradation from aquaculture practices has been reported, and the negative effect of this are pollution and eutrophication. A. True, B. False, C. Maybe, D. Sometimes, E. Never. The answer is a true. These problems, together with chemical pollution, can cause algal bloom, depletion of oxygen, reduction in water quality, and habitat destruction. 19. This is one of the most frequently talked about impacts of open water aquaculture. A. Transmission of disease, B. Antibiotics. C. Energy usage in feed production, D. Use of freshwater resources, E. Nutrient buildup. The answer is E. Nutrient buildup. This is one of the negative environmental impacts of aquaculture. Nutrients build up in the environment surrounding the fish because there is nothing to prevent dead fish, food that isn't eaten, and feces entering the water column from the cages. These additional nutrients cause algal blooms as the tiny plants make use of all the additional nutrients. 20. Habitat destruction and disease transfer are the negative environmental effect in aquaculture. A. True, B. False, C. Maybe, D. Sometimes, E. Never. The answer is a true. Habitat destruction and disease transfer are the main reason why fish are affected in this problem.